aliens from around the galaxy. It's time for the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. It's time to turn up the volume. Woo! Set the dial to fun. Reaching warp speed. Adina, Brian, Chris, and Steve. The biggest sci-fi podcast in the galaxy. It's time for the Big Sci-Fi Podcast.
Hey guys, it's Brian, and before we jump into the show today, which is our brand new season of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, we got an email from Shelby, who is with Pop Culture Hero Coalition, founded by the wonderful Chase Masterson, who we all know and love from Deep Space Nine. Well, Shelby said that they love the show and they wanted to reach out to us because this year they are hosting a shoe drive fundraiser at Star Trek Las Vegas, August 5th through the 9th. So if you are attending Star Trek Las Vegas this year, they want your help. They're asking attendees to bring new or gently used shoes to Chase Masterson's booth. Every pair supports the Heroic Journey program, which provides young people with research-based tools to build resilience, practice empathy, and develop healthy coping skills. So if you're going, tell them that the Big Sci-Fi Podcast sent you. Tell Shelby hi, tell Chase hi for us, and let's help these kids in need, all right? Now, guys, let's get into episode 1 of the brand new season of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, aliens from around the galaxy, welcome to the 12th season of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. I'm your lead host for this evening, Brian Donahue, but I'm joined by the very talented, smart, and creative Adina Mignona from Fredericktown, Maryland. Did I get that
Frederick.
right?
No, it's just Frederick.
Oh my gosh, I've known you for years. Frederick, Maryland. Steve Merkin from sunny Los Angeles, California. How you doing, sir?
Hey, howdy, hey.
Hey, what's going on? And the very smart and intelligent, and that's I said the same thing twice, but you know what I mean, Christian Fox, all the way from the greater Toronto area in Canada. We love Canadians, Chris. We just want to make that very clear on this podcast. We appreciate you, brother. Mm-hmm. How you doing tonight, man?
I appreciate that. I hold no malice towards any Americans. I just feel like it's just one person who's, saying a lot of weird things. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's our own bad dream.
Yes, it is.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are super excited that you continue to listen to this podcast and continue to share it on your social media. We ask you just keep doing the same thing. Keep sharing the love. Over 200 episodes. We're not stopping anytime soon if we can help it. And tonight, folks, to celebrate the launch of our 12th season on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, we have a very special guest with us this evening. And we couldn't be happier. He's a best-selling author, has made 2 of the most fabulous Star Trek films, and also is a deep thinker, cares about humanity, really needs no introduction if you're a Star Trek fan. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Nicholas Meyer's on the podcast this evening. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you. How flattering to be referred to thus. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much, sir. We're excited you're on the show. Of course, Star Trek fans know you for directing Star Trek II, Star Trek VI, and having your hands all over Star Trek IV. Those are generally considered to be some of the best of Star Trek films ever made and continue to be ranked that way by many fans and critics, by the way. And so we're just super pleased. We have read your book and with great interest and great delight. And we are, Adina is holding that up. We're all holding it up here.
I kind of feel like General Patton wanting to yell out, "Nicholas, I read your book," because he knew how to deal with this man by that.
But anyways, we're just super pumped to have you on the show, sir. And we're going to start off with something we typically do. And that is, we're very interested here on the podcast about origin stories. And if you have read Nicholas's book, his autobiography, it is absolutely fantastic. It's hugely entertaining, wildly funny and interesting. But sir, I think there's still probably a good number of people in the Star Trek fandom who might be interested in some of your origin story. They probably know plenty around Star Trek and all that stuff, but you're a prolific author, and how did all that start for you?
Well, I was born at an early age.
But not in the house your father built, or you built with your father? Okay.
I was born at the end of the Second World War on Christmas Eve, 1945. I grew up on the island of Manhattan, which at that time was a sort of an enchanted place to be for a middle-class family, which is what ours was. My dad was a doctor, a psychiatrist. My mother was a concert pianist. And New York was like Disneyland back then, except it wasn't plastic. It was all real. And a middle-class family, and does anybody remember when there were middle-class people?
Right.
Anyway, the middle-class people could go to the opera. They could go to the ballet. They could go to museums. I mean, try getting into the Modern Museum of Art now, and you know they want an arm and a leg. But back then, it was all accessible, and I greedily soaked up everything they dragged me to. And they did have to drag me, because in those days, they had the quaint notion that when you went to the theater, you had to wear a necktie. And I conceived from the first a lively distaste for this article of clothing. And I was always being slammed into it with tears running down my face until they took me to the thing that they were bent on dragging me to, which I completely fell in love with, whatever it was. So I had this rather privileged middle class growing up. I was not a very good student. I had learning difficulties. Nobody knew what ADD was. I had it only in a very modified form. It's not like I was hyperactive. It's not like I was dyslexic. I used to be dyslexic, but now I'm KO. It just, pause for laugh. Okay. And I just didn't understand anything that went on in school. And I had to learn in my own way, at my own pace. The one thing I did know how to do and couldn't stop doing was reading. I just was reading all the time. And when I discovered movies, I fell in love with movies, and so it slowly, over years of hit and miss self-discovery, I found out that I'm a storyteller. And if I'm good at anything, which is an open question, storytelling is it. I can't understand a contract. I can't read a water bill. But if it starts with once upon a time, I'm there.
I was just going to say, the one thing I loved about your book, Mr. Meyer, was that every single page contained two elements. One was something very funny or something very sarcastic. Was that intentional because it made it an enjoyable and fun read?
You know, in Hollywood, you're supposed to take credit for everything. I can't say it was intentional. I think that my normal prose style, if I'm not imitating Arthur Conan Doyle or somebody else, is chatty and informal and given to wordplay. I try not to pun too much. Someone named Sidney Smith said that pun is the wit of words, and the wit of words is infinitely inferior to the wit of ideas. So I've largely, but not exclusively, outgrown my propensity for puns. And but yes, I think the style of my memoir is definitely informal, chatty. I wasn't out to write an academic tome or something too highfalutin. I think I'm basically a sort of middle-brow guy, and whether you're talking about The Three Musketeers or Huckleberry Finn or Sherlock Holmes or Treasure Island or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, that's sort of my wavelength, if that's right. I also, just to complete the picture, am passionate about two other things. One is opera. I'm a big opera fan, and sort of self-taught and autodidact, but I grew up in an all-musical household. My mom was a concert pianist, and my dad was a very good pianist, and my grandfather was in the Boston Symphony. And my other passion, which I discovered around age 13, was Shakespeare. And I am a Shakespeare fool. So that's a kind of overview of my aesthetic, intellectual.
Well, you did write. I was going to say you did write in your book about how you would go directly from the set to the opera when you could.
Yes, in Los Angeles, we now have our own opera company. But back in when I was doing The Wrath of Khan, the New York City Opera, which was a great opera company, now defunct, alas, because it was much more innovative than the Metropolitan Opera, which was a sort of a museum piece. They used to come out to LA for 3 weeks a year, and I'd go every night.
That's really okay. You just mentioned Shakespeare, and I don't know if the look on my face was one of blankness, because I was just going through my brain, and the Shakespeare stuff didn't come through in the autobiography. I'm a little surprised.
Well, I can't remember. It's interesting because I'm writing now on Substack, and I've been writing about. It's a series of essays, maybe it's only 2, called Under the Influence.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the things that influence you. There's 2 kinds of influences. There's influences that you are aware of, and there are influences that you are unaware of. Childhood things are the biggest influences. The people, the places, the experience, the sights, the movies, the Bambi, whatever it is that you have at what we call an impressionable age. And that stuff bonds with you. It imprints.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered, among other things, I was age 11 when I read the complete Sherlock Holmes story, the 60 stories that my dad gave me, and I bonded with that. I bonded with several movies, of which, for purposes of this hour, I'll confine myself to, let's say, 3. The first one was the Walt Disney 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
Which I think without doubt is the great Walt Disney movie. I saw it many, many times. It's a rather grim film that hides its grimness under a kind of glossy entertainment. It's visually sumptuous. But what they're actually talking about, and the movie ends with the atom bomb, it wears very well, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And it certainly was designed by a man who really didn't quite get credit for it, named Harper Goff. Harper Goff also designed, as it turns out, most of Disneyland. And he met Walt Disney in a model train store in London, and they got on. And when it came time to design 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he said, in Verne's novel, it describes the submarine as the Nautilus as looking like a cigar, which, P.S. is what submarines look like. But he said, well, no one's going to want to look at a cigar for 2 hours. So let's remember something else that the novel says, which is that it is mistaken for a sea monster. So let me combine a cigar with a sea monster, and we had the first steampunk artifact with this absolutely voluptuous interior. I wanted to live on board that thing.
Yes.
Just out of camera range for you guys, I have a 5.5 foot all lit up model of the Nautilus, which I
Very cool.
acquired over time, which I want to give to some museum eventually. So 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was one of the, as I say, there are 4 movies, and that was the first one. The second one, unsurprisingly, was also Jules Verne. When I was 11, I was taken to see the Mike Todd Around the World in 80 Days movie. And I again, this was a conscious influence. This was an influence that I was aware of at the time. And there was a booklet, which is, again, sitting out of range here, that you could buy in the lobby for $2 about how the movie was made. And there was a little article trumpeting the statistics. All you need is 13,000 people and $6 million in 4 countries. But the headline of the article, remember, I was 11 when I read this. 3 headlines. You too can make a motion picture. Do it yourself. No previous experience necessary. So I took this rather literally, and I said, Pop, I want to make my own movie of Around the World in 80 Days. You have to help me. And my father, the psychiatrist, did own an 8mm Revere wind-up camera. So we spent the next 5 years on weekends, on school vacations, on summer holidays, making our all-kid version of Around the World in 80 Days. And eventually we were in Harper's Bazaar magazine. And no matter how bitterly my father and I fought during that adolescent time, it was always put on hold when it was days when we were supposed to shoot the movie. So Around the World in 80 Days, and that article certainly was a conscious influence. I knew, at the time.
Yeah.
But the capper for all this was the 4th movie. And the 4th movie, I had developed very early on a kind of man crush on an actor named Laurence Olivier. He was the English Brando.
Yeah.
He was Brando before there was Brando. And I was absolutely fixated on this guy. And I saw, while I was busy staring at the clock in my classroom and learning nothing, that he was starring in a movie that was playing downtown called, as I thought, Henry V. Oh. And Henry V, the poster, had knights in armor and swords and horses, and nowhere made mention of the author. So I played hooky. I left school. I took the subway. I went down to the Thalia, which was about 95th Street and West End Avenue, and I had a religious experience. I was Saul of Tarsus, struck blind on the road to Damascus. I found my sort of place.
Yeah.
And that place was William Shakespeare. I thought, okay, this is the best movie. This is the best actor, who also, as it turned out, directed it. And we did Julius Caesar and Romeo and Juliet in school. I didn't understand any of it. I didn't understand anything. But I understood this. And I thought, I'm never going to read another Shakespeare play, not until I see it first, because it's meant to be heard. And I memorized it. I memorized the movie. I memorized Richard III. I memorized Hamlet. I memorized Midsummer Night's Dream, Macbeth. It goes on and on and on, because I would see it. And I have a good memory. Some would say a very good memory. And I stayed in the theater. In those days, you could stay as long as you wanted. So I started at 2 in the afternoon and I lasted till midnight. Did it ever occur to me to go to the payphone in the lobby and tell my folks where I was?
You didn't have a dime, right? So it's okay.
I didn't give a fuck. I was just out of it. I didn't even think about it. And I guess I realized I was going to catch hell later, which I did. But by then, it didn't matter. I had found true north. I understood. Yeah. And so I became a Shakespeare fool. And I remain one. And the other big influence on my life that I knew at the time, as opposed to the ones you don't know, that you just absorb, was when I was 5 years old and on my way to bed when my father, for whatever reason, put on a recording of Carmen. And I came downstairs drawn by a magnet. And that became and remains my true north, George Bizet. Carmen, I've read about it, I've written about it, I've watched it, God knows, in all its different incarnations. And there are a million, because all art is a history of cut and paste. So there's Carmen Jones, there's the Carmen Ballet, there's the Carmen all Russian percussion. There's a million versions of Carmen. There's Rita Hayworth and Glenn Ford and the Loves of Carmen. There's the Carlos Saura flamenco Carmen. You can't get away from it. Anyway, those are the pieces that make up me.
Yeah. And how much of that, I mean, we can, as a Star Trek fan, we can say, well, Star Trek 6 is one of the things it's known for is the Shakespeare in it, and using Klingons as the heavies in that to portray that quite magnificently by the magnificent Christopher Plummer, of course.
Well, I owned a Chandos CD. I still own it, of Chris reciting Henry V, juxtaposed with William Walton's music for the Olivier film. Wow. And I'd lie in the dark. I was living in London, and I would just listen to this and listen to this. And when it came time to write Star Trek 6, and I was looking for a sort of follow-up to Khan, I created a Shakespeare Klingon quoting General Chang, just so I could hire Chris Plummer and hang around the set and say, do that speech again. He humored
Childhood
me a
dream
lot.
come true. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Where you get to shake hands with your dreams.
Oh my gosh, he is still remains one of the great guests on Trek film. Just that was so brilliant, and he was marvelous in it. And I want to share this. I a few months ago now shared Star Trek 6 with my family. I've got a 9-year-old boy, 10-year-old girl, or she is 12 years old now, and my wife
before the cops show up.
right. But we do Friday night movie night and pizza every night at our house here. And I was like, guys, it's my turn. We're doing Star Trek 6. I think you guys will like it. And there was moaning and groaning. And let me tell you what. There are 2 Star Trek films my family adores, and that is Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, and Star Trek 6, The Under. My family was gripped. My kids were gripped by the whodunit murder mystery of that film. My wife thoroughly enjoyed Christopher Plummer. Could not believe it was the same man who played in Sound of Music, and they were enamored with it was so awesome to show them this Trek film and have them just go, holy cow, that's a really fun movie to watch. It was great. So anyway, it's personal. I had to throw that in there.
Thank you. It's nice to hear. Artists are people who put messages in bottles, and when you're done, you throw the bottle out into the wide world, and you hope somebody's going to find it. You hope they'll open it up and take a look at what you put in there, but you never know. So it's very nice to hear that you saw a movie that I made and you liked it. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So to pick up on that, because you described that concept of the message in the bottle in the book, and I love that because it is another way of saying that art is in the eye of the beholder, which is something that I know I talk about to people a lot. So I'm wondering if you've ever had an encounter. It doesn't have to be a Star Trek; it could be with one of your other films, but from a fan interpreting something that you hadn't thought of that was very surprising to you.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the most thrilling part is the ultimate collaboration between the creator and the viewer, the auditor, whatever. I have a screenwriting friend, a very dear friend named John McNamara, who wrote the movie Trumbo about Dalton Trumbo. And he's a rather brilliant guy. And we were talking about Star Trek II, and I was talking about the, again, influence of Michael Curtiz and the Seahawk and Captain Blood, and those wonderful scenes where they run out the guns and they're always, pulling up planks. And so I had this shot in the movie, which you will remember because it's my favorite shot, where the crew is ripping up the gratings and loading these torpedoes in. And I was talking to John, and I said, I realized the whole thing is a ridiculous anachronism, but I just couldn't resist doing it. And he said, "What do you mean, anachronism? They had to do it. All the electrics were out. It had to be by hand." And I thought, this is the perfect example of being met halfway. The collaboration between the artist and the auditor or the viewer, however you want to phrase it, that he was rising to meet me, to rationalize what was otherwise a somewhat arbitrary, capricious, and anachronistic idea. I just wanted to do it because I wanted to do it, and I'd seen those Errol Flynn movies, and we were going to do it. But he had no problem with it. He had figured out why it had to be.
Yeah.
That's always what I've assumed. I always just thought as a kid, I'm like, well, no, I buy it. The Khan messed up their power, and they gotta do things manually. It made perfect sense.
There is a line about what is working around here and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Meyer, I have to
You
play.
can call me Nick.
All right, Nick.
I
All
think
right, Nick. All right. Now we're friends. All right, Nick. I have to apologize because reading your book, I did not know that you made a couple of prior films that were on television that I watched when they were when they ran live. The first is The Night That Panicked America, and the other was The Day After. And I watched both of those when they were on TV. But the Night That Panicked America, my dad made sure we watched it because he was living in New York the night of the Orson Welles broadcast. So to see the story tell about how that happened and the effects afterwards to Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater was very well done. So that movie really was great. And the Day After, I always thought, why did you hate Lawrence, Kansas? What did Lawrence, Kansas ever do to you? But it was just, it brought people's to life about, we can just talk about, we'll just shoot the nukes and blah, blah, blah. No big deal. But there was the human element that was missing that you brought forward in that film. And
well, if I can free associate for a moment to that, which is probably the most worthwhile thing I ever got to do with my life, at least so far. The biggest problem about nuclear war is that nobody wants to talk about it. We hope it won't happen. But hope is not a strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
And, now we have a lunatic in charge. And we're inches away from something terrible and irrevocable taking place. There have been, as you may know, many nuclear accidents. And I don't just mean 3 Mile Island. I mean, the Air Force dropped 2 nukes on North Carolina, I think back in the 60s. They didn't go off. Somebody dropped a monkey wrench down a missile silo in Arkansas, and that almost precipitated Arkansas blowing up. There are a lot of these near misses. And by the way, when I was offered to direct the day after, I was the 4th director to be offered it, 3rd or 4th. Nobody wanted to do it. And I didn't want to do it either, because I had time after time. I had Star Trek 2. I was some kind of hit. I was having my 15 minutes of world fame. I had written the 7% Solution. I was a best-selling author, blah, blah. And the candy store was open for me. And there was a lot of candy. And now somebody was saying, what about this movie about a nuclear exchange between the United States and the Soviet Union? And I didn't have to ask how that ended. So I was being psychoanalyzed at the time. I was lying on the couch and talking about issues, personal stuff, creative stuff, stuff having to do with girls. And my analyst, who, by the way, turned out to have been Daniel Ellsberg's analyst.
Oh my goodness!
Didn't when the White House plumbers burgled his office to look for dirt on Ellsberg, that was the end of the Richard Nixon administration. That's how it all came untangled. Anyway, I was lying on the couch trying to talk my way out of doing a movie about nuclear war. And I had all these rationales at my fingertips. For example, well, you don't go from doing feature films to TV. Everybody knew that was a step down, you know. And my shrink just waited me out until I just was lying there. And he finally, because he never really spoke, said, well, I think this is where we find out who you really are.
Wow.
Checkmate in one.
Wow.
I did not know how to wriggle off that hook. And that's how I wound up doing the movie. With a bad grace, backed into it and whatever. But yes, I think it's fair of me to say about myself, and artists are not the best judges of their own work. It's not a very good movie. It wasn't meant to be a very good movie, because I knew if it was a really good movie, then people would talk about the movie and they wouldn't talk about the bomb. So I didn't want a catchy theme song. I didn't want stellar movie star performances. Oh my God, did you see Robert Mitchum? Whatever. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted a kind of a blunt instrument, a public service announcement, if you like. If you have a nuclear war, this is what it's going to be like on a good day, P.S. And what happened, which, because I never thought it would get on the air, that was another one of my rationales for, you know, not doing it. Why do it? It'll never get on the air. Well, it barely got on the air. But it did, as it turned out, change one person's mind about nuclear war as a winnable proposition. And he happened to be the president of the United States, Ronald Reagan. And he wound up flying to Reykjavik, Iceland, sitting down with Premier Gorbachev. He had previously referred to it as the evil empire, the axis of evil or something.
Yep,
he found he liked
empire.
he found he liked Gorbachev. And between them, they signed the Intermediate Range Missile Treaty, which is the only treaty ever to result in the physical dismantling of nuclear weapons. So you're welcome. And of course, the pussy grabber in chief has walked out of that treaty. But
Can you send him a copy?
he doesn't watch anything that's not
it?
about him.
Yeah,
he doesn't watch anything that's
true.
not him.
There is a fascinating new movie coming out called The Brink of War, starring Jeff Daniels as Ronald Reagan, and J.K. Simmons plays his assistant or chief of staff or something like that, and Russell Gunn as Gorbachev. It looks absolutely superb. And I think it's coming out.
It'll have to be about him seeing The Day After. It has to be in there.
Right. It's all about that meeting there in Iceland. So in the actual building, I think I saw something. They actually used the actual place.
Is this coming out in theaters, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Is this?
Yep.
Oh wow!
It's just fascinating how we're talking about that, because that is something I was interested in learning more about. So
yeah, they showed us The Day After. I was in 4th grade when that came out, and they showed it to us in school.
Really?
What school was that?
Just my elementary school I grew up on Long Island, and it was just I was.
They showed it to children. Oh, God,
Yep.
Every time I hear that children saw it, I'm sort of appalled. But whatever.
No, I think it was I don't disagree. I mean, we were already, this was right in the mid 80s. We were already, even before that, I was aware of, our issues with Russia and the threat of nuclear war. So it wasn't like, it didn't introduce us to something that we weren't already somewhat familiar with. But showing us, I think, a possible aftermath, I think, was not I don't think it was a terrible decision to do that. Yeah.
Well, it was, it was very fortunate that movie, and I get asked about it a lot, because it came at a time when there were only 3 networks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And there weren't a million other things you could do on your phone or whatever. So I had the attention of over 100 million people at one time, at the same time. And then it was in Russia, and then it was in Cuba. And a general on Castro's staff said that the Cuban Missile Crisis had not been real to him until he saw the missiles taking off.
Wow.
And I think the same thing is essentially true of Ronald Reagan. He couldn't imagine it. It was just all theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
When he met Dr. Helen Caldicott, which is again before he saw the movie, he told her that the missiles could be turned around.
Oh my gosh.
He didn't know that they couldn't. She had to explain it to him.
Wow.
I don't know if you've seen, have you people seen The House of Dynamite?
I was thinking about bringing that up.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
Well, first of all, she's a friend of mine. And secondly, one of the things that you learn when you watch her movie is that none of these people understand how to manipulate or control or deal with their own technology. They don't even know how to merge 2 phone calls. How do you patch this in?
Mm-hmm.
These are people, with seconds to go. It's terrifying.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure about bringing up that, but it had when I watched it was the same feeling what you were describing about The Day After, where it's not a good movie, but it's not about being a good movie. It is about what it's talking about. And I had the same feeling when I watched A House of Dynamite.
Yeah. Same thing here.
Yeah.
As Dina said, I watched that movie, and it's told from 3 different perspectives that slowly connect each other with it. And we don't see the end result of what actually happens at the end. We're left to the viewer's decision as to did it happen? Did they stop it or not? Whatever. But it does bring it to light as to what can go wrong seriously. And
do you know about Colonel Petrov?
No.
Does everybody know about Colonel Petrov?
No.
He was the duty officer. This is 1982, I think. He was the duty officer at one of those Soviet listening posts where everybody's underground watching monitors and hoping they never see anything. And suddenly they did see something. They saw these 3 missiles coming at the Soviet Union. and everybody started screaming and crying and throwing up, and said to Colonel Petrov, you have to alert the Kremlin so they can respond. And he said, well, why is it only 3 missiles? I don't think it's missiles. And they said, no. You have to talk to you have to say, he says, no, if I tell them, they'll push the button. So he didn't tell them. His logic was, if they wanted to annihilate us, why are they only sending 3 missiles? I don't think it's missiles. And it turned out to be something stupid. Anyway, for this, he was drummed out of the army and sent to Siberia because he didn't blow up the world. And then you can Google him when it's over. And then because it gets better. They brought him to the United States. They stood him in front of the General Assembly in the United Nations as the man who saved the world. And all he wanted was to meet Kevin Costner.
Oh my God.
Love that.
No, because he had a VHS copy of The Bodyguard.
Oh my gosh.
And out there in Siberia, he kept watching it. So he got to meet Kevin Costner, Colonel Petrov, the man who saved the world. Of course.
That is an amazing story. Why wasn't it in your book, huh?
I don't think I knew about him then when I wrote it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So Chris, I want to give Chris an opportunity to ask our final question this evening, because he's had a relatively quiet evening. So Chris, go ahead, and then we'll close out our time with Nick.
Yeah. So one thing I've been curious about, because we talked about Star Trek 6, we all love it. The mystery is incredible. Obviously, you do a lot of Sherlock Holmes stories. And I'm just curious, how do you go about crafting a mystery that is, one, interesting, that has logical clues, but they're not too obvious, and then like just a really good reveal?
It's a very hard question to give an honest answer to, because the creative process, let's call it that, is very mysterious. I'm going to give you a little anecdote of a highfalutin character. The Oracle at Delphi tells Socrates that he's the wisest man in Greece. And Socrates thinks that can't be right. So all I got to do to disprove the Oracle is to speak to somebody wiser than me. So he goes talking to all sections of Greek society and finally gets around to the poets. And I think he means artists. And of course, back then it was all boys. And he thinks, surely these people who write and paint and sculpt so insightfully about the human condition are going to prove to be wiser than me. And he says, imagine my surprise when I found out and realized that the poets were the stupidest people I spoke to. They were infantile. They were like children. Except when they did their art. And then they go into a kind of trance and take dictation from God. And this they call inspiration. And then when it's over, they come out, it's hours later, they don't know where the fuck they've been, and they go back to being jerks. And so instead of trying to explain something that I really don't know how to explain, I invoke the Plato Oracle at Delphi story. Nice. I will say that on Star Trek 6, where we were really mimicking current events at the time, one of the things that I was very proud of is that we filmed the we filmed the coup in our movie before it happened in Russia.
Wow.
We had already had it in the can when Mr. Gorbachev disappeared. We called him Gorkon, and nobody knew whether he was alive or dead. And, the Paramount front office, yelling, how fast can we get the movie into theater? Nobody wasting a thought about poor Mr. Gorbachev, whether he was alive or dead. but I was very, proud of the sort of life imitating art, imitating life, and so forth about that.
The one thing that we all, I think, would like to attest to is that something will be remembered 100 years from now, 200 years from now, or whatever. And I guarantee you, Nick, that in 150 years from now, when someone is very upset and things are not going well, they're going to yell "Con," like Kirk, to express their anger, disgust, or frustration with the situation. That one moment in that movie is probably the moment that everyone will always remember. That will
Well,
pass down
I
from.
like what you've said because it implies that people will be around in 150 years.
There you go.
And I am very, very nervous about the likelihood of this.
Yeah.
Now, I hope in 150 years, when someone stubs their toe, they're going to yell "Con," and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for being on our show, sir. It has been a privilege and a pleasure to hear about your life, your story, what makes you tick. And just thank you. That's what we can say from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, sir. And thank you for your art. Thank you for what you share with the world. I know it's risky every time, but we thank you for taking the risk and putting yourself out there for us fans.
I was so flattered to be asked to invite me.
Thank you.
Very sweet.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And for those listeners out there, everything you've heard today, I hope you've been inspired, most of all, not just to watch more Star Trek and to maybe watch some of Mr. Meyer's films that you maybe perhaps haven't seen yet, or
let's
or
not
the
leave out
books.
the books.
Read the book.
Grab the
yeah.
books. We'll have some links in the podcast for sure, for how you can catch up and learn all about Nick and his writing and everything else he's involved in for sure.
There's my website. Let's not leave out the good
website.
part.
We will link all of that, of course, so you can stay connected. The Substack. Thank you, Adina.
Link the Substack.
Guys, just remind me of all of this post-production here.
Yes.
But if you've learned anything from this particular episode, and I think we summed it up pretty good here at the end, just that we hope we're around in 150 years. The way that happens, guys, is if we're kind to each other, if we listen to each other, if we care about our fellow human beings enough to put other people's needs ahead of our own, and to think about the greater good, to think about our neighbors, to think about someone else. And my goodness, that's how we last. That's how we keep going.
Words
so let's
to
do
live
that.
by. Words to live by.
Yes, let's do that. Until next time, guys, watch more Star Trek, listen to more of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Take care.
Bye-bye.